Okay, let's talk about the group by statement. I'm going to run a query here, and as you see, I'm querying the resources, human resources employee table, and returning the gender and marital status for each employee. So there's 290 rows that were returned. Now, if I wanted to get every combination of gender and marital status, I can use the group by clause, which comes after the from, and I could do gender and then marital status. And when I run this, I spelled marital status wrong. You can see it comes back with unique combinations of gender and marital status. So the reason that we use group by is that we can then use this with the aggregate functions that we learned about to perform some summary data. For instance, I could use count, right? So I could say count, we'll do employee ID or business entity ID. And this is where now we can see how many employees that are male and married there are in our company that are male, female and married, male and married, and so on. Now, one thing you may wonder is, what can I just group by gender? So let's try that. So if I come in here and say group by gender and run the query, whoops, we get an error. So if you look here, you'll see, let me make this error message a little smaller. Well, maybe too small. So here you can see that it's saying column human resources marital status is invalid in the select list because it's not contained in either an aggregate function or the group by clause. So what this is saying is that I can't just display marital status on its own here in the select unless I have it in my group by, or if it was part of a aggregate function, like I could have done like something like min. Now this may not make sense for our case, so I could take the minimum marital status, which might be male. See here, and it's coming up with min. It doesn't make sense really in this case because I have the gender and then I guess the minimum, but the number here is going to be essentially a total count of everybody that's female, regardless if they're married or not. So in this case, it may just make sense to leave it out, and then I just do a group by on gender to get the count. Now, if I wanted to do marital status, I can just essentially add it back in, right? And just make sure it's matching in both the group by and the select. So another thing that you'll notice here is that the group by on its own is very similar to a distinct. So if I get rid of the count and do a group by, I get this as a result. And this is really no different than doing like a distinct in the select. And let me remove this. And when I run this, I get the same result. So the only thing I can't do here now is use an aggregate function. I couldn't say, for instance, like count. If I try to run this, I should get an error because it's saying it's not contained in an aggregate function or a group by. So it's getting confused because it sees the count here, and once it sees this, it's thinking there should be a group by.